Hello.
Hello, this is Kristen with NTMA. I just wanted to welcome everybody to our second of the Employee Management and Benefits webinar series. Today you'll be hearing from Dan Bagley on candidate sourcing. He's going to go ahead and get started, but before we get started, I just want to let everybody know if you have any questions throughout the presentation, if you want to enter them into the chat box in the bottom right. Just go ahead and type them in there. We'll be monitoring that, and then we'll answer them as we go, as well as at the end of the webinar. So please feel free to enter questions, and then at the end of the webinar, we'll unmute you, so you're welcome to ask questions at the very end. So Dan, if you want to go ahead and get started.
Thanks, Kristen. I appreciate your having me. I want to make certain that you can hear me well enough. Kristen?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, very good. Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for joining us on a, depending on where you are, hot August afternoon. So what we've prepared is a conversation around competitive techniques in recruiting. We'll talk about the fact that recruiting today is a competitive sport, with unemployment being as low as it is, the demand for manufacturing employees and all the ancillary functional services being quite high as well. And so we'll sort of cover some techniques in recruiting. Where do you find people, some sources that work, et cetera. I have a number of deliverables for you, and this deck is available to you as a PDF after the call. I'll try to be as efficient as I can with time. I will watch the chat box, and if you have any comments or questions or gestures or anything else, please stick your hand in. So on that note, I'll sort of try to move us ahead. So the topics for today would be, as we had discussed in the beginning outline, techniques for finding appropriate candidates for those main job roles and functions within your firm. So we'll talk about some sources to find and communicate with candidates, and we'll talk about who to talk to, how to get them to talk to you, especially if you've been proactively working LinkedIn or some of the other sources out there. And then I was just going to give you a couple of the tips that we use in our business when we're recruiting that we've learned. And so I'll just sort of pass those on to you as lessons learned. And then I have a final bonus whisper at the back end. Something interesting about privately held businesses, very often the owners of those businesses were never selected. That is, they never had to apply for a job if they grew up in the business. They never had to submit themselves to a stack of resumes. So one of the observations that we've had over the years is it's very interesting watching privately held business owners attempting to recruit, because sometimes they haven't been in that same position before. Most of the people that work in those firms have indeed competed for jobs. So we think that, you know, if you sort of think back, if you've ever had to compete for a job, how did that feel? And marketing to find these people, if we sort of think like the job seeker and put ourselves in their position, we're a lot more likely to make moves and make decisions that are interesting, to go to the same watering holes, things like that. So if you've been recruited, or if you have competed for a job at a new company, you'll have some interesting and relevant reflections that can help you make some wise and competitive moves in recruiting. And another thing for you to think about is, what would it take for you to join another company? Like, what would it take for you to unseat and leave where you are? Because each time we do that, we have to relearn how the organization works. And it doesn't matter if you come in as the boss or you come in as an employee, you have to relearn. And so even for more money, even for more prestige, even for more whatever, there is pain in choosing to move. And if you think about your own personal motivations, it can help you. Why would you leave? Why would you stay? And another interesting question we'll talk about is who's looking and why. That is, who's looking for a job, who's looking for a new career. So if we're thinking about where to recruit from, what to say to them, how to say things to them, if we think about who they are, that can inform our decisions. I also think it's insightful to think about some myths. I'm a disbeliever in millennialism. I think it's one generation talking about another. I think there are hard workers, creative people, ambitious people, loyal people in every generation. And so I don't think that catering to millennials or there's been, frankly, a lot of sort of backhanded criticism. And I think millennialism does not exist. I think our challenge in every generation is to find the great people there. People don't want to change jobs. It's painful. It costs them money. It's a big stressor in life to have other things going on in their worlds. People change jobs when they need to, when they have to. You've probably heard the myth that money isn't the main factor in most hires. And in fact, money is often, according to McKinsey, the main factor in most hires. There is attendant with increases in position, increases in role, increases in opportunity. There is almost always substantial money involved. And we're talking about 20%. And a further myth is that top talent is looking for a new job. Top talent tends to be loyal. Top talent tends to care about where they are, and they tend to be focused people with serious intent and a great deal of loyalty. In another day and time, only a few years ago, it might have been a buyer's market for companies to recruit employees. Today is not a buyer's market. With sub 5% unemployment, I mean, we're at record unemployment, 4.4% or something, with extreme demand for technical roles and hard functional roles such as accounting, procurement, quality, et cetera. It is not a buyer's market. And when we put on that buyer's market, well, you could come to work here if you did this and if you did that, is probably not the right recruiting stance today. A last couple here, companies are not all alike in attractiveness. A dirty, grungy place to work, a place where there's no music, a place where there's no whatever it might be. And I'm not advocating music, I'm not advocating new carpet, but I am advocating an attractive, comfortable, fun place to work in some dimensions. When employees will tell you when they go on 3 interviews, they'll come back and tell you which one was the most pleasant. And the last myth is that HR, in fact, can recruit. HR can talk about the company. HR can do, and that's even if it's the wife of the owner, even if it's a person, often in our small companies, there's sort of an administrative officer who handles HR, who handles recruiting, things of that nature. That person can talk about the company, but they can't talk as in the work as the people in the company. So the real recruiting would be done by the supervisor, by the boss, by the owner, by the leadership that the person would be collaborating with. It's the absolute most powerful recruiting resource that you can have. On the right-hand side, you'll see the Bureau of Labor Statistics unemployment reports just issued over the last several hours. Actually, I updated this chart when I saw that it had come out at this 4.5% level. Demand for employees is absolutely at an all-time high in almost every sector. Top companies are getting the best employees. In Pittsburgh, where I live, the IT community, so Apple, Uber, Google, and another 1,200 startups are competing for Carnegie Mellon and University of Pittsburgh engineering grads. The top companies get the best employees. The companies that have opportunities to express just offering a job, it makes it very, very difficult to recruit an A player. We'll talk about A players and why that matters in a minute. And I've mentioned this again, we are heading into a time of wage inflation. With the labor market being where it is, you'll remember during the .com era, you'll remember that IT professionals, web professionals, broadband professionals, et cetera, saw an escalation in that specific sector. We are seeing escalations in wages in manufacturing trades, in engineering trades, in robotics, in programming, in several different areas that all relate to our workplace. The top attractors, there are several studies, Heidrick and Struggles, a number of others. Workplace culture turns out to be number one. It felt great when I was there. Not the boss pat me on the head. No, we talked about the projects the company was doing. I watched how the teams were working. I saw what was on the whiteboards. I saw what the company was doing, and it was exciting for me. And they assess quality of leadership from that sort of buzz. Opportunity for advancement is a real goal. People don't want to sit, at least A players and high performers, don't want to sit in the same job for 5 or 6 years. They want to move, they want to progress, they want to move along in not just the money tree. They want to move along in their career tree, and that's why we do see the rotation that we see in our fields. And stability and growth of a company are highly attractive. There's a lot of people that are investing in startups, investing their careers, that is. But for top A players to get someone to shift companies from one company to yours, stability, having a plan for growth, having dynamic operating plans, and being really on your business game is very important. Young people are highly astute, well-read, et cetera, and we're watching workers in their 30s and 40s capable to run companies. So they're extremely sharp folks who are looking for the attributes of a well-run business to join. I also thought I'd put this chart in for you. If you notice, since 2010, the elapsed time for unemployment duration has been dropping remarkably. And in fact, it's now in some sectors, people are getting jobs before they leave their next jobs. And there is tremendous demand. This from the Wall Street Journal from our Labor Department statistics recently. I'll skip onward here. You can ask me any questions about unemployment, et cetera, but you can find those in the Wall Street Journal. But straight on to the topics. So we want to find these A players. We want to find these people who want to expand their careers. Sort of, how do we do that? Where do we look, et cetera? Well, the first thing to know is that the really talented people that you want already have a good job. They're somewhere. They're either, perhaps they're in school, perhaps they're recently out of an apprenticeship or some other educational venue, or they're already in a job someplace, and there are a couple of things that you can imagine if you've been recruited before that might attract them to move from their present lot in life to yours. The opportunity for promotion, perhaps some dissatisfier that they may have. They haven't been let to run this initiative, or that another colleague has been recognized for performance in some way, or entrusted with capital assets. We've seen I saw recently the case where a young man's colleague had been, basically presented with a 5-axis machining, center that he was to set up and do all these things, and this other guy's standing there like, well, what's my role? What do I do? So just sort of in general can't see growth opportunity maybe in their careers. Or very often, you know that in the last several years, it comes around sort of merit increase time, and we're sort of 2, 3, 4% is typically what companies budget. But if the value of the position that the person in is increasing faster in the open market, and they're hearing from colleagues when they go to training at machine tool companies or tooling companies, or go to IMTS or go to other venues, and they become aware that their colleagues are demanding more money. These are, both opportunity and money are the reasons that you would unseat your life. But great employees are very loyal. They're focused, they're dedicated, and they're stable. They're at some other company. So this can give us some clues where to look. One of my favorite places, and by the way, just chime in with questions. There's questions, comments. Feel free to give me the nonsense big N if you think it's, you want to editorialize. But where would you find somebody who's happy in their job and is a high performer? We'll sort of go there. Let's talk about, first off, what we want to find. Well, let's see here. We're looking for somebody with the wisdom of a 50-year-old, the experience of a 40-year-old, the drive of a 30-year-old, and the pay scale of a 20-year-old. Well, okay, not really. But what do we want? So there is a top grading guide that has a list of competencies, and this is a really good place to start. In the same way that you would like a job seeker to tell you what they would like to do in their job with specificity, they'd like to hear from you what's important to you. And when you start looking for them, and in these venues that we'll talk about, there are skills that you can identify there. So I pointed out this first summary page, but there are a couple of others that adds up like, 50 sort of competencies. But if you pick out a couple, I need somebody with specific X experience, which is number 11. I need their conceptual ability to process a part, which is number 4. And I need them, number 44, to have extremely strong conflict skills, because I have a type A workforce and a lot of very active voices on my shop floor. Now I know I'm looking for this experienced master sergeant level professional who has conceptual ability and conflict resolution skills. So I'm looking for quite a special animal that fits in my organization. Knowing these specific competencies is worth something. And there, listen, you can find sample job descriptions, you can find sample listings of these things. I have just found this sample list of 50 to which we add. You can see down there the other competencies. And this is just a simple PDF file that is part of the top grading program that Brad Smart publishes in his, I think it's a $25 book. I have no stake in it, but it's certainly my number one reference. The book is Top Grading by Brad Smart, and there's a whole series of resources, but that's where these lists came from. In the military, in the ensuing football season, just ahead of us now in the United States, in the world of competitive electronics like iPhones and computers, and in the world of machining businesses, automated manufacturing, and even all the suppliers that supply our industry, I believe that it is true that a small team of A players can run circles around a giant team of B and C players. There's a lot of mediocrity in the marketplace. And so those people that excel, those people that make higher than average earnings, those people that command higher than average pricing, that have higher capability employees, tend to be people who are very dedicated to being A players and only hiring and associating with A players. What is an A player? We're talking about the top 10% of the talent available. And back to the competencies, they would be the best of the group of programmers in the state of Rhode Island. They would be the best of the controlling accountants in the city of Indianapolis. A players have behavioral characteristics like loyalty, like attention to detail, like self-motivation, self-direction, self-education. They have some degree of ambition. These people outcompete people who sit at their desks in task orientation. And what I wanted to share with you is A players don't spend their time in the same places, on the same committees, and doing the same things that other people who are more comfortable in their careers and waiting. So this is a clue. These A players are looking in other areas for stimulation, for progress. And when we look for them, we need to think about their watering holes. The watering holes of A players these days in every capacity, and I'm talking forklift drivers, programmers, controllers, ISM, that is, procurement analysts and executives. The first place they go is to the web. It's very interesting. Web phone use in the recruiting industry has increased a great deal. The marketplace is becoming more and more crowded every year, but don't despair. Please don't despair. When you place in a couple of different locations, your ads are syndicated throughout groups of affiliated relationships. So if you're placing, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about my very favorite place to look for high-performing A players these days, I use Indeed very heavily, combined with some industry job boards. So we'll talk about that combination. But Indeed syndicates through almost 3,000 different job sites around the world, actually. It is a highly effective central engine, as is Monster. But in my case, I have found the tool set on Indeed to be very powerful. Now, perhaps you've tried Indeed, but we're going to talk about this as if it were my favorite hobby, which is fly fishing. A lot of people go slap the water. Some people catch fish. The people that catch fish use good bait. They know where to fish. They go at the right time of day. They're very persistent. They don't stop. They fish after dark, et cetera, et cetera. So the ability to catch these recruits that you want and to identify them and get them close to you depends heavily on not just what the tool is. I believe you could find an employee at almost any of these sites or starting there and working out if you have some reason that you like some other flavor. So once again, I want to stress, I am not advocating. I have no role. I have no anything. I'm sharing with you the tools that we use when we place executives in strategic positions in companies. In my business, we do no recruiting whatsoever. The only time we place positions in companies is when it's a part of implementation of a strategy, and the company asks us to do that for a variety of reasons. We use two primary tools. The first is Indeed. The second is Execunet. In today's conversation, I'm not going to focus on executive leadership positions, but this is a very different recruiting animal than most NTMA members actually spend time recruiting. This would be a VP of operations. This would be a general manager, a chief operating officer, chief marketing officer, chief financial officer. And these searches are quite different than the 95% of businesses which seem to be the critical workforce positions. So I'm going to focus on that population for this conversation. Happy to talk about executive recruitment with you and that area in another conversation. If you want to know what all the sites are and what their pros and cons are, a really good buyer's guide would be a firm that has some tools, etc., but they have assembled a very nice listing of some 50-odd job sites. So if you want to decide for yourself what the best source is, I send you to betterteam.com job posting sites. This is an outstanding compilation, and so I didn't want to I'm not trying to advocate. I'm not trying to advertise. I'm trying to tell you some best practices that we think that we've come to learn. So as I said, I use Indeed, and Indeed, it has taken over from Monster in a leadership role. This is what people are looking at. This is what people are spending time in, far more than Monster these days. Monster became a central aggregator. Indeed is now engaged. And if you go on their websites, you'll read these stories. Well, I got a job like this and I got a job like that. So they take the position of the job seeker. That makes them a very powerful tool for you and me if we use them right. There are some outstanding tools, and to recruit an employee, $50,000 to $70,000 a year sort of job might cost you, my experience, $1,200. So before I hire a recruiter, before I hire, if any of our sponsors or recruiting NAMs are on the phone, I'm probably duck soup. But before you do any of those things, if somebody's in the company is really interested in the recruiting effort, and you place great ads on Indeed, and those ads get syndicated, and if you keep the max CPC, if you see that statistic on the left-hand side, max cost per click, if you make that a nickel, it's not going to get syndicated very far. But if you get that up to a buck, buck and a half, there is a maximum. The syndication on your ad gets picked up very significantly. And that's what makes this resource extremely effective. And you can see how many you have. There are tools here. I've got 3 open jobs, 14 of them are closed. I've got 162 candidates awaiting review. I have reviewed 65 of those. I phone screen. Now, I don't use sometimes the workflow tools, but there are very interesting, easy to use tools, and Indeed is just like GoDaddy.com. They'll get you on the phone, they'll run you through the tools, they'll tell you how to use them, and they'll talk you through the most efficient cost strategies, because what they want you to do is to come back and use them over and over again. Screening is super easy. The way I do this is once a day. Normally in the early mornings, I go through the candidates that came in that day, in the preceding 24 hours. I respond to each one of them. You can set up a quick form letter. And there's a method in this madness that we'll talk about. So where to hang out? If you're in Indeed and you screen, you push everybody to either Indeed or whichever site that you choose for your recruitment site where your ad resides, then you can screen everyone in a comparative manner. So if I read them, what am I reading for? What decision am I trying to make? And once again, I want to tell you that as a top executive of a really large firm for many years now, I have to tell you, if you're not active in the hiring process, it's not something you can delegate. It's not something that is easy to communicate to someone and to give to them this feeling for that person that you want to see. The more explicit you are in writing down what you're looking for, the more detailed you can provide in what you're actually trying to find. If you can teach your screener, if you're not going to be the screener, because at the end of the day, you're trying to have a feeling, yes, this really is a candidate who might fit here. They might have the ability, they might have the motivation, they might have the attitude to fit into our company by what I've read here. So I sort of use this experience and credentials screen to help me feel, do they have that ability, motivation, and attitude? When I'm screening, when I'm interviewing, when I'm referring, when people are referring candidates, I'm not looking for their feelings about the work. I'm not looking for what they think about the work. When I'm interested in what you have done. It's been said to me many times, I don't know how to do that with a 20-something-year-old potential employee who has limited job experience. And I say back, when we do the interviewing, when we do the screening, when the person presents their resumes to us, etc., if they have listed musical accomplishments, if they have listed part-time works that they have done, if they have listed the accomplishment of scouting or something in any element of their life, where it's been student government or rodeo or 4-H, or it could be in many dimensions that can demonstrate to us a pattern of performance. What we're looking for are accomplishments. We're looking for other people. When I say references, we're looking for other references that will say, yeah, that guy played a role in this initiative in this way, just like he said he did. We're looking for people that tie back. We're looking for a few key people who are difference makers because they get things done. Are they self-educating? That is, are they committed to their own education, or are they waiting on someone to bring education to them? Are they a volunteer in action? And I'll give you my number one easiest screening technique. No letter, no further. If the person doesn't take my job seriously enough to write me a letter, so this is a very nice quick screen, and Indeed, Monster, many of the other job sites give you some other screening questions for the candidate to answer, such as, do you live in the Los Angeles area? Do you have 7 years of X experience? So there's some yes/no questions that will also help you do screening. But at the end of the day, once again, I'm looking for what you have done, and I'm trying to assess, do you have the ability, do you have the motivation, and do you have the attitude to fit into my team, into my company, and what our group of people is trying to do? Indeed has a set of tools. I just thought I'd show you this. You can actually track per click. So, you can, watch a search that we've sort of had underway for a period of time here. And you can see what the cost per click is. Even though I had a budget of $1.50, you can see it ranged from 98 cents. Let's see, what's the maximum look like? $1.17, $1.19 looks like it might be on the high end. So there are some really outstanding tools in the Indeed set. I think that what you say about your jobs matters so much. If you go into Indeed and you enter jobs for accountants, or you enter jobs for manufacturing procurement executive, or et cetera, and you read the job descriptions, most of them are as unattractive as a plain saltine cracker. That is, they don't stand out. They don't sound exciting. They don't offer promise. They don't connect with an employee. If you write an engaging, honest, descriptive recruitment job description, and I also think if you tie it to what you're trying to get done, so linking your goals with theirs, giving a potential candidate something that they can attach to. Now, there's some things I haven't talked about in this conversation. I haven't talked with you about trolling LinkedIn and trying to pursue people through LinkedIn. Most people I have spoken with have not reported good results. Most people use e-recruiting to try to find people at good people at moments of discontent. If you want people who are already in an excellent position and you want to recruit that person away, a paid recruiter who works specifically in our area, whichever specific domain or function that you may be interested in, will likely be your best choice. But I focus this conversation on self-recruiting. And I think finding people is not difficult. It takes devotion. It takes recognizing that feeding the food chain every day in each thing that we do, and making that as integral as marketing the company, and making it a part of a community, which many do. Hamel Manufacturing in Pittsburgh makes itself such a part of the NTMA community there, of the manufacturing community, and of the local business scene and the local educational scene. I've watched that organization do this in spades. There's a few techniques here. Hunting social media. If you've got some people that do it, but a 25-year-old is probably not going to be able to recruit a 20-year experienced recruiting executive. So the question is, who is hunting for who in social media? And you'll find that most of the highly experienced employees don't waste a lot of their time doing that. Employee referrals can be one of the most valuable sources you can ever have. If you've got an employee that you like and they refer someone to you, chances are their standards are going to be pretty close to your own. I love association meetings, local organizations, whether they're purchasing or operations, quality. It could be APICS, it could be ISM, it could be NTMA, it could be a variety. Now, I'm not advocating to shop your peers at NTMA, but in the functional areas like accounting, et cetera, those are really good areas to go and sort of cross industry locate some people. And the other notion, almost every NTMA member places ads to sponsor soccer teams, to sponsor baseball leagues, to blah 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 in the local market. One very good way to use that sponsorship money for positive effect is when you put that out there. It's the moms and dads, and it's the sort of community folk that read those ads. And so why not focus on recruiting? Look, we've got good careers. Know anybody that can fit into our organization, like this. So anyway, just a couple of ideas. I wanted to open this up for discussion, but before I do, I want to give you a tiny little bonus whisper because you sat through this diatribe. I would encourage you not to hire unless you must. Now, you'll know when you must. You know, when you're adding multiple machining centers, when you're doing this, when you're doing that, you know, there's a capability you don't have. But the risk of new employees is high. Some 85% of new employees don't stay on the job more than 2 years. The risk is high, and the effort needed to onboard them well and properly is high. Training and development of known employees is much lower risk. You can spend $5,000, $10,000 on a current employee and move them up their knowledge chain, move them through degrees, move them through, in the Navy, they used to call that career path a Mustang, where an individual is moved from seaman to admiral through their career by learning and learning and learning. If you need new positions, therefore, rotating people through to put these least risky positions in as new and move the people that you trust, the work ethic that you need, the reliability, all these factors, to move those people closer and closer to the front lines and challenge them and send them to school and that sort of thing to develop them is a really good strategy. I'd also encourage you to focus on only hiring A players when you hire. We're going to have another downturn. Things are flush right now. Almost every machining business we talk to has lots and lots of business. But the business is expected to soften middle of the year, late next in 18, middle of 18 to late 18, and we're going to go through another period of softness. We're in the longest, softest expansion we've had post-World War II right now. Things are going to get tough again. So you want to add people that you're never going to get rid of, and you don't want to add people to the organization that you're going to have to flex out later on. And last note on this little whisper, driving productivity is far more efficient use of your funds than recruiting or hiring. Anything you can do that drives your productivity and drives your employee leverage and drives your revenue per employee up is a better move than hiring, because every time you hire, you've got another loyal mouth to feed. You've got somebody else to care about. And when you expand your family, do it when you have to, and do it carefully, do it wisely, and do it attentively. I have enjoyed the chance to spend some time with you, and oh my gosh, it's sort of hard to talk into a microphone and not watch your eyes. So I mean, I don't know. I have no idea how this conversation's gone for you, but I'd like to open it up at this point for discussion. We've got 15 or 20 minutes left, and so with that, Kristen, if we could open up for Q&A.
Sure, I've unmuted everybody, so if anybody has any questions, feel free to jump in and ask. Anybody have any questions for Dan?
Well, I appreciate that you came, and as I say, the PDF will be is available, and I'm happy to share it with you. And if you just didn't want to express your question online, you can send me an email at rdbagley@mtma.org.
Okay, I have recorded this webinar, so I'll go ahead and post the link and send the link out to everybody so they can go back and hear it if they need to, or share it with their staff. So thanks again for joining us today.